Look at the plant nearest you right now. It's communicating with other plants through underground fungal networks. It's making decisions about resource allocation. It's remembering past attacks and preparing defenses. And it's doing all of this without a brain, without neurons, without anything we recognize as a nervous system. For centuries, we dismissed plants as passive, unthinking organisms. But modern science has shattered that assumption. Plants communicate, learn, remember, make decisions, recognize family members, and engage in sophisticated problem-solving. Welcome to the emerging field of plant neurobiology, where the boundaries between thinking and not thinking dissolve entirely. Today, we're examining the scientific evidence for plant intelligence, exploring how they communicate through underground networks called the Wood Wide Web, and asking the most controversial question in botany. Can plants think? The Venus flytrap. Counting without a brain, Let's start with the most dramatic example, the Venus flytrap. This plant can count. When an insect lands on a Venus flytrap's open trap, it must touch the tiny trigger hairs inside. But the trap doesn't close immediately. The plant counts the touches. It requires at least 2 touches within 20 seconds before snapping shut. Why count? Because closing the trap costs enormous energy. If the plant closed every time a raindrop or falling leaf brushed a hair, it would waste resources constantly. By requiring 2 distinct touches, the signature of a moving insect, the plant avoids false alarms. But here's where it gets truly remarkable. The Venus flytrap doesn't just count to decide whether to close. After closing, it continues counting. 3 touches trigger digestive enzyme production. 5 touches activate nutrient transport systems. The plant adjusts its response based on continued counting over days. This isn't pre-programmed reflex. This is problem-solving through information processing. The plant integrates sensory data over time, makes cost-benefit calculations, and adjusts behavior accordingly. Scientists confirm this requires short-term memory. The plant remembers the first touch long enough to evaluate whether a second occurs within 20 seconds. A brainless organism performing multi-step conditional logic based on quantitative thresholds. That's cognition, by any reasonable definition. Chemical communication, the plant internet. Plants don't have mouths, but they talk constantly, through chemistry. When a caterpillar starts munching on a leaf, the damaged plant releases volatile organic compounds into the air. These airborne chemicals travel up to 100 feet, warning neighboring plants of the threat. Those plants immediately begin producing defensive compounds, bitter-tasting chemicals, toxins, or compounds that attract predators of the herbivore attacking the original plant. Studies on tomato plants, lima beans, and sagebrush confirm this chemical signaling system works across species. A damaged sagebrush warns tomatoes. The tomatoes respond even though they've never encountered that specific threat before. They're interpreting the chemical message. But plants don't just communicate through air. They communicate underground through fungal networks called mycorrhizal networks. Mycorrhizal fungi form symbiotic relationships with plant roots. One fungal network can connect dozens or even hundreds of individual plants across a forest floor, creating what scientists call common mycorrhizal networks. These networks act as information highways. In one landmark 2010 study, researchers infected tomato plants with a leaf pathogen. Within 65 hours, neighboring tomato plants connected by mycorrhizal fungi showed increased activity of defense-related enzymes, despite being physically separated by barriers preventing airborne communication. The infected plant sent a warning signal through the fungal network, and healthy plants responded by activating defenses before being attacked. Think about that. Plants are eavesdropping on their neighbors through underground biological cables, preparing for threats they haven't experienced yet. Learning and memory in plants. Can plants learn? Absolutely. In 2016, Australian researchers trained mimosa plants in a learning experiment. Mimosa leaves normally fold shut when touched, a defense mechanism. Researchers repeatedly dropped the plants from a height, triggering the folding reflex. At first, the plants folded their leaves every time. But after repeated drops where nothing harmful happened, the plants stopped responding. They learned the stimulus was safe. This is habituation, a basic form of learning observed in animals. The astonishing part? The plants remembered this lesson for 28 days after training stopped. 1 month later, they still didn't fold leaves when dropped. but immediately responded to a genuinely harmful stimulus like crushing. They distinguished learned safe stimuli from novel threats. Plants also exhibit associative learning. In experiments, researchers exposed pea plants to light paired with airflow from a fan. Later, the plants grew toward the fan even in darkness. They associated the fan with light direction. Memory requires storing information about past experiences and retrieving it to modify future behavior. Plants do both. Kin recognition and social behavior. Plants recognize family. In 2007, researchers grew plants with roots next to either siblings from the same mother plant or strangers from different mothers. Plants grown with siblings had smaller root systems and competed less aggressively for soil resources. Plants grown with strangers developed larger, more competitive root systems. How do plants recognize kin? Through chemical signatures in root exudates, compounds released into soil. Each plant's exudates carry a unique chemical identity inherited from the parent. Roots detect these signatures and adjust growth accordingly. This is kin selection, the evolutionary strategy where organisms favor relatives because they share genes. It requires distinguishing self from non-self, kin from non-kin, and adjusting behavior based on those distinctions. But plants don't just recognize family, they form alliances with fungi. Forest ecologist Suzanne Simard documented mother trees, large, established trees that support younger seedlings through mycorrhizal networks. Mature trees send carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus to seedlings through fungal connections, increasing seedling survival rates dramatically. Simard found these resource transfers preferentially benefit seedlings of the same species and, in some cases, the mother tree's own offspring. This isn't just passive leakage through networks. The trees selectively direct resources to specific recipients. The Wood Wide Web, forest intelligence. Mycorrhizal networks create something startling: distributed intelligence. Individual trees connected by fungi behave differently than isolated trees. When one tree faces drought stress, connected neighbors may send water and nutrients. When one tree is attacked by insects, the network broadcasts chemical warnings that trigger forest-wide defensive responses. The topology of these networks resembles neural networks in animal brains. They exhibit scale-free patterns, a few highly connected hub trees linking many others, and small world properties where any two trees connect through short pathways. These architectural features support efficient information transfer and rapid response to changing conditions. Suzanne Simard's research suggests these networks support collective forest behaviors that no individual tree could achieve alone: coordinated defense responses, efficient resource distribution, and long-term ecosystem stability. Some scientists argue this constitutes a form of distributed cognition, similar to ant colonies or beehives where intelligence emerges from interactions among simple individuals. But controversy erupted in 2024-2025 when critics challenged the Wood Wide Web concept. They argued evidence for intentional communication and altruistic resource transfer was overstated. A 2025 PNAS study found plant signaling about attacks is rarely evolutionarily stable. The mathematics favor plants suppressing cues or even signaling dishonestly. Do plants think? The philosophy: so can plants think? Depends what you mean by think. Plants don't have brains, they don't have neurons, they don't have centralized nervous systems or anything resembling animal consciousness. But they exhibit behaviors requiring perception, information processing, memory storage, decision-making, and adaptive responses to complex environments. They solve problems. They learn from experience. They communicate. They make predictions about future conditions and prepare accordingly. Critics argue we're anthropomorphizing. These are biochemical responses shaped by evolution, not conscious choices. Plants react to stimuli through deterministic chemical pathways without any subjective experience. But couldn't we say the same about animal nervous systems? Neurons follow deterministic chemical and electrical rules. At what level of complexity does deterministic chemical signaling become thinking? The question forces us to examine our assumptions about intelligence, consciousness, and what minds can be. Conclusion: plants communicate through chemical signals and underground fungal networks. They count, remember, learn, recognize family, solve problems, and make decisions. They accomplish all this without brains through distributed chemical signaling networks, electrical action potentials traveling through tissues, and symbiotic relationships with soil microbes. Intelligence isn't locked inside neurons. It can emerge from any system that processes information to generate adaptive behavior. Next time you walk through a forest, remember, beneath your feet, trees are talking through fungal cables. Above your head, they're broadcasting chemical messages. And all around you, green neighbors are thinking, in ways we're only beginning to understand. If this changed how you see plants, like this video, comment which fact shocked you most: the Venus flytrap counting, the underground internet, or plant memory. And subscribe. We're exploring the hidden intelligence all around us.